There is absolutely no doubt about it that Pilates is having a moment right now. Pilates has been trending on social media over the last few years, and that growth isn't stopping. The Pilates industry as a whole is projected to grow into an over $400 billion industry over the next 10 years. So, because of its popularity and all of the marketing surrounding Pilates and the social media posts that you're seeing all the time, I was inspired to create today's episode, that's all about Pilates. And I want to give you the facts as well as my experience as someone who has been teaching and has been doing Pilates long before it was trending. Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Allie and I'm your host for Modern Body, this podcast. And I'm also saying it that way because I don't want you to confuse it with Modern Body, which is a Pilates and movement studio that I run online. And as I said earlier, this is my third time now on the podcast saying this, but I am a Pilates and movement instructor, and I've been teaching Pilates for over 10 years and other forms of movement even before that. And on this podcast, we talk about everything related to movement, which is probably a lot more than you think, because I believe, and it's not even that I believe, it is a fact that movement really is an essential part of our life, and its impacts go much deeper than what we see on the surface. So today, I want to take the time to talk very specifically about a topic and method of movement or body training that is near and dear to my heart, which is Pilates. However, there are other methods of movement that are near and dear to my heart, which we'll get into another day, but today is dedicated specifically about Pilates because I have done so much training in it, and I've just also witnessed so many amazing benefits that this method has given people time and time again, and myself included. So I definitely want to give the time to this topic today because I do feel like there is a lot of just misinformation circulating out there between, people, influencers online saying, yeah, I started doing Pilates and this, and this happened. Or, some people might have a negative opinion of Pilates. So this is going to be a non-biased sort of approach to Pilates. I want to give you the facts and give you the information. So today, I just also want to say that I'm not going to go into the history of Pilates today because that is enough content to be its own episode, and I don't want this to be a very long episode. I just want to get right to the point for you because don't we all just want to get the information and get going with our lives, right? Okay, so it's almost funny to me to be doing a podcast today about Pilates and to even have a podcast that has the name Pilates and Movement in it, or to even own an online studio that I run, because if you were to tell me 10 years ago when I took my first training that this is where Pilates would be in this day and age, or where I would be with it, I would have thought you were absolutely nuts. I was first introduced to Pilates at a very young age, about 12, because I had gone to a dance intensive. And during these intensives, you took classes basically all day. So say I had already taken like 2 dance classes in the morning, maybe a ballet class and a point class. And then we had lunch. And then in the afternoon, we would take maybe a conditioning class like Pilates or another style of dance. So to be honest, I did not like Pilates back then. It wasn't fun at all. I actually kind of hated it. But again, I was 12. So, not many kids like conditioning classes at that age. The only thing I did like about it was the fact that I got to lay on the ground pretty much for the whole entire class. So that was always nice. A good break from being on my feet for the first half of the day. So anyways, that's a little bit of my backstory. That's when I was first introduced to Pilates. Then I did it more in college. And then after college, when I was in the real world, I was teaching dance classes, I was performing, I was choreographing, I was doing a lot of things, and I really decided I wanted to broaden my understanding and support my own body and the bodies of those that I was also teaching in a studio. So I decided to embark on a Pilates training, just mat, what I thought was just going to be mat, but then turned into basically my graduate degree. That's kind of how I looked at it when I started to really get into it and pursue it. Another reason I really wanted to make this episode is because I'm sure other instructors or people out there will totally relate to this, but I am not kidding when I tell you that even after 10 years of teaching, when I go to family functions or events or see friends, they'll ask me, hey, how's your yoga business going? Or if I meet somebody maybe for the first time or I'm introducing myself and I tell them I'm a Pilates instructor and they'll be like, oh, cool, Pilates. Is that like yoga? And no shame to yoga at all. I love yoga. I think it's great for its purposes. But the truth is that even though Pilates is so mainstream now, or at least mainstream to me, a lot of people still don't know about it or what it is exactly. So again, these questions don't bother me at all. I just think that it shows there's an opportunity to clear the air a little bit more about what Pilates is. And that way, if you have a friend or someone that you know or a family member that doesn't know what Pilates is, you can send them this episode and it will help them to have a better understanding of it. Okay, so let's get into today's episode. So we're going to specifically answer the questions of what is Pilates? What are the different types of Pilates out there? What are the benefits of Pilates? Can I do Pilates? Is Pilates good for me or what is it good for? And how can I be incorporating Pilates into my life? So let's start at the very top with what is Pilates? Now, there's no one exact definition of Pilates out there on the internet. If you go and Google it, you're going to find all sorts of different interpretations. So I also did that and kind of formulated my own little definition of it to be very simple, but encompass all of the important aspects of it I think need to be included. So here we go. Pilates is a low impact system of body conditioning. It strategically trains your body with specific exercises to promote postural balance, joint functionality, strengthening of your whole body from the inside to outside. It promotes flexibility, mobility, balance, and coordination. You just heard that and you're thinking like, wow, that's a lot of good stuff. That's because it is, and it's very, very true. Now that you have that definition, and I know it's pretty broad, but we're going to get a little more specific now. So there are many different ways you can do Pilates. And when I say ways, I really should say ways to set yourself up to do Pilates. So there is Pilates on the mat, Pilates on a reformer, Pilates on a Cadillac, a chair, or the different barrels. There is a ladder barrel, an arc barrel, and a spine corrector. So they're all Pilates, they're just all done in a slightly different setup. So each apparatus is going to help bring a different focus to the exercise, or it's going to help facilitate a different goal or say the essence of the exercise. Or you may use a certain piece of equipment because it's going to support somebody's body better, depending on what they may need from a postural or a muscular standpoint to really meet them where they're at and help them progress toward the outcomes or goals that they're desiring. Now, I want to put a plug right here about how Pilates is different than yoga, just a short little snippet. Now, I'm not a yoga expert. I highly respect yoga. I think it is wonderful for all its specific benefits, just like Pilates is wonderful for all of its specific benefits, just like strength training would be wonderful for all of its specific benefits, right? So I'm not comparing one to the other. I'm actually just going to give you a very simple, broad difference between the two because I'm asked this question a lot. So I thought I would just put this in there as well. So Pilates is a series of exercises for body conditioning. And there is absolutely no spiritual component in it in terms of its training. It's all from an anatomical standpoint or a physical standpoint. Whereas with yoga, you're focusing more on poses or postures that, can be done individually. They could be strung together to create a sequence. And there is a big spiritual component in the training of yoga. Very simply put, right? Okay, so now we're going to go and transition into the different types of Pilates. So there are two main schools of thought in Pilates. There is the classical approach and the contemporary approach. If you are to go to a classical Pilates instructor, what they're going to do is they are going to follow the exact same sequence or structure that Joseph Pilates originally created and outlined using his original exercises and apparatuses or machines. They don't deviate very much from what Joseph Pilates did from the very beginning of Pilates. Whereas with contemporary Pilates, they're also going to use Joseph Pilates exercises. The format is still based off Joseph Pilates. They've maintained the integrity of these exercises, but they've adapted the exercises to reflect current modern research and science and apply what we know about the body today. So I would say contemporary is a slightly more evolved approach. And I'm not saying this because one is better than the other. I don't believe that there is one that's better than the other. It really all depends, again, on your desired outcomes, what your goals are, and what you want from this specific training. Now, that being said, I will also tell you my experience. So my experience is I am a fully certified contemporary Pilates instructor. Now, I did not go out seeking that from the beginning. I sort of just stumbled upon it, to be honest. And I'm so glad I did, because now, for me personally, knowing the differences between the two styles of training, I would probably have chosen the contemporary model over the classical model. And here's why. I believe and have seen in my own clients, and again, I've never been a classical instructor, so I don't know. Maybe the classical instruction could be exactly the same. But from what I've found is that contemporary Pilates is very safe. It is very effective because it's going to follow these biomechanical principles that are going to keep our clients safe and effectively training for long periods of time. So here's an example. Say I have a client come in and, maybe it's my first time working with them and, I'm testing out some different positions for them. I have them laying on their back. I have them lift their legs up into the air, into that 90-degree position, that tabletop position. The client tells me that they are experiencing a lot of tension in their back when their legs are up. And I say, okay, no problem. So what I can do is I could slightly shift the position of their pelvis. I could modify or personalize the exercise to better support them and their body. Or I could put them on a different piece of equipment. Or I could change the exercise entirely to meet the needs of their body and where they're at. So that way they're able to still progress and feel safe and get an effective workout as they are also first learning these exercises. So what I also love about the contemporary approach is that it is constantly and continually evolving. So what I mean is not that the exercises are changing. Pilates exercises are the Pilates exercises, but whenever there is new research, new findings coming out, it's being trickled down and implemented into not only existing exercises, but there's more exercises. We start to have a larger library to draw from to accommodate and start to create exercises or training that also incorporates this new information. So here's a great example. So since I started doing my training, fascia was never considered in the training that I was given. It just wasn't. We didn't ever talk about it. But then about 6 years ago, the company that I certified through, and I still have an active certification with, and I still work with, they looked at all of that evidence and that latest research and information that was coming out about fascia. They created a whole fascial course. So the exercises didn't change from the original method of what I learned in the contemporary model, but what they did was in this course, they informed anyone who took the course about what fascia is, how it influences our body. And also they told us how we could start to change the exercises or give them slight variations to have more of a fascial focus. Or we got a whole new repertoire of exercises that also incorporated the fascia. So we could have Pilates exercises and with fascial integration exercises. So you can see how it's just continually evolving and it's not staying stuck in where it is. It's always moving forward with us. Now, the other thing it kind of goes in with this is that I truly do believe that contemporary Pilates is a lot less rigid, a lot less strict, and allows for a lot more human movement and individuality, which I think is so, so important when we're looking at the human body. Because yes, there are theories, there are very, very strong theories in the human body. However, it is not black and white. We truly are not all created equal. So not every single exercise is going to feel great on someone's body, is going to be accessible for somebody. So this contemporary approach gives a lot more space for individuality and for us to experience the exercise in different ways, however we need to. So if you're wondering, how do I know what kind of Pilates to pick? Again, it all depends on your desired outcomes. You can totally do your research online. So wherever you go, whether it's an individual studio, you're going to go privately with an instructor, they will say, or it should say somewhere, in their about page or the instructor's bio about what type of Pilates that they are teaching and what type of Pilates that they're trained in. Let's go into part 2. And this question is, what are the benefits of Pilates? Okay, benefits of Pilates are long list. So the list that I came up with and created for you is mind-body connection. So body awareness. There is breathing, which is a huge one. So you get a lot of breath work focus in a Pilates session. Definitely will promote relaxation and peace of mind. You're going to gain strength throughout your body from the smallest muscles to the biggest muscles, so from inside out. You're going to gain postural support and rebalancing throughout your whole body. You're going to gain flexibility, mobility, joint functionality, balance, and coordination. I'm sure there's more, but I really found those to be the major ones. So I do want to point out one specific part of this. And I want to point it out because Pilates is trending online. I think I just need to say some of these things to make sure that everyone understands that a lot of what you see on social media is purely marketing and also one person's experience, which we also have to take with a grain of salt sometimes. So I want you to just notice that I did not say weight loss in this list of benefits, and that is on purpose. And again, I feel the need to say this because this whole Pilates aesthetic, Pilates body, the weight loss aspect or the toned look that you're seeing people talk about and being touted online is not the true benefit or outcome of Pilates. It's just not. Okay. Anytime a client comes to me and they say that weight loss is one of their goals, or they just ask me, will Pilates help with weight loss? I very honestly tell them, no, Pilates will not be your driver of weight loss. However, doing Pilates with other practices, maybe it's you're changing your nutrition a little bit, maybe it's you're starting to walk a little bit, it can help with weight management. And I also tell clients that I guarantee that you start doing Pilates and down the road, maybe it's a week, 2 weeks, a month, who knows, a year, you're going to feel so good in your body. You're going to want to do more physically, and you're probably going to want to change other areas of your life as well. So this myth of Pilates toning people's bodies could be true, but maybe these people already are just naturally thin. So that's just a lot of marketing. And I also want to make sure we put this out there that I did recently read a book about Joseph Pilates this year. It was someone's perspective and their experience of working with Joe Pilates, he said, in his gym in New York. And not one time did he talk about Pilates being a driver of weight loss. He didn't even talk about it being of a benefit of weight loss. So oftentimes we see a lot of very thin people doing Pilates in old pictures or even current pictures, but that's because when Pilates first started, a lot of his clientele were dancers. And dancers are already working out or dancing hours and hours a day. They're already in peak physical condition. So of course they're already going to look long and lean. That's how their bodies already are. So Pilates only enhanced that for them. For us as regular people, and for myself included, Pilates hasn't magically made my body longer, but it has made me feel better and more secure and more stable in my body, not just while doing Pilates, but doing every other activity or anything in my life. So those are the biggest benefits of Pilates. Also, you can do Pilates for literally forever. I have had clients of all different ages, from teenagers all the way up into their upper 80s. I even worked at a studio where there was a husband and wife couple there that were doing it into their 90s. They had been doing it for, 20 years. They didn't even start it until they were in their 70s. So Pilates really provides as well a lot of longevity, which I think is so wonderful to start thinking about our health span in terms of also our lifespan. Like, how long are we going to be able to move and keep moving for the duration of our life, not just right now in this present moment. Okay, now let's go into the next part. I started already talking about it a little bit, but the question is, can I do Pilates? Who is Pilates good for? Okay, when I tell you that Pilates was truly created for every single person, I'm not kidding. Pilates was not created for dancers. Pilates was not just created to be a rehabilitative service, although it's great for that too. But when Joseph Pilates created his method, he really had it in mind as being a method that everyone could do from their home, follow this very specific sequence of exercises that they could do every morning to feel great in their body. We look at some of the exercises today, and maybe you see them online. Again, you're probably seeing very grandiose, like crazy exercises online, but Pilates is actually very simple in its approach. It does have that coordination piece to it, but it's very accessible for pretty much everybody. The other great thing about Pilates and who can do it is that anyone can do it because it can be adapted for almost any sort of condition you're going through or any season of life you're in, from prenatal to postpartum to injuries to post rehab. Like I said, it's great for longevity. It's great for athletic conditioning or cross training or complementary training for athletes. It's great for weightlifters, runners, or just living your life in general. You can benefit from doing Pilates. That's one of the main reasons I personally got into it, is because I took my first training. It was just a mat course, and that's all I was going to do was mat, because I just wanted to help students at a studio and I wanted to help myself so I could keep dancing and feel good. But once I took my training and I realized the science that went into Pilates, the postural theory and the postural benefits of Pilates for just the everyday human, I was like, wow, I think everyone can do Pilates. I think everyone needs to do Pilates. And that actually really inspired me to keep going with my training. And then here I am now 10 years later. When you hear people say Pilates is for everybody, there is some truth in that. I do need to answer as well about, the price point, the cost of Pilates, because people see Pilates as being a very high cost method of training. And you're not wrong. A lot of places charge a lot of money for Pilates instruction, specifically one-on-one instruction. So this is what I found interesting when I read this book this year, is that Joseph Pilates did not start doing a lot of one-on-one training. What you would do is you would show up at the gym, and it was basically an open gym. Maybe at first he would work with you a little bit more specifically one-on-one, but you learned the sequence of exercises. And then once you knew it, you would just come in on your own like an open gym, like I said, and he would walk around, maybe give you tips, maybe not. The private training model really started when Pilates made its way out to LA and Beverly Hills, and there were a lot more high profile people doing it, actors and models and whatnot. So they were able to pay a higher price, and they wanted that one-on-one training. So one-on-one sessions became more popular because people really do want to know like what they're doing. And I often find that even now, because there is a lot of precision when it comes to Pilates. And like, of course, if you're going to take all this time to do Pilates, you want to make sure that you're doing it, quote unquote, the right way, or what is best for your body is what I would rather say. So the price point for obviously one-on-one sessions is going to be much higher because you're paying for that instructor's undivided time and attention, which, being an instructor myself, I could tell you that it is 100% worth it. Some people, that's exactly what they need for a long period of time. Some people just need a few sessions to help with some specific things maybe they have going on, or specific questions, or just to do a few introductory sessions to get going. But then you could do semi-private. So that'd be maybe like 2 to 3 people with one instructor. So the cost would decrease a little bit. Or you could do group classes, and those could be in person. These could be online. You can find lots of resources out there that are also absolutely free. I would say though, if you are going to do something in person or online or, wherever, to make sure you do your research and just see where the instructor is certified or who they're certified through, how long they've been training, do they have any specialties or special certifications of people they've worked with. Now, of course, not everyone's going to have tons and tons of years of Pilates training, but making sure that someone is being trained through a highly reputable company is going to be your best bet no matter where you go. And if you're interested in that, I will put some company names in the show notes. So if you are interested in finding a Pilates instructor either near you or online, you could find some recognizable companies and know you're in good hands. But I would say now more than ever, Pilates is the most accessible it has ever been, between in-person group classes being everywhere to online classes, which range, anywhere from, I see people at $9.99 a month all the way up to like $55 a month. So there's a wide range depending on what your price point is or where you're at with your own life financially. You can find something that meets your needs. So the last question I'm going to answer is, how can I, or even should I be incorporating Pilates into my life? Well, I can't answer the question of should you be incorporating Pilates into your life. If someone were to ask me, would Pilates benefit me? First, I would ask them what they're doing right now, what their goals are, what is going on in their own body, and be able to answer that a little bit better. But I could say as a pretty blanket statement that, yeah, I think doing Pilates would probably be great for like 95% of the people out there. It just, again, depends on what you're wanting to do, where you're at physically, what goals you're trying to achieve. But I've never come into contact with someone who's done Pilates and regretted it, unless maybe you just didn't have an instructor that you really jived with, which totally happens, which is why you just have to also try a lot of different instructors and, again, different training methods or different types of Pilates trainers to know what's going to work for you. Now, how can you incorporate Pilates into your life? Well, you can incorporate it really easily. Pilates is something that you could literally do every day because it's typically not a very highly stressful type of training. It can be small movements, they could be bigger movements. You can make it intense if you wanted to or less intense. It's primarily body weight training. There is resistance bands. There are, small balls, small hand weights incorporated. I mean, you could definitely make it very intense. There's athletic conditioning Pilates, post-rehab Pilates, there's on the machine Pilates or the different apparatuses. So really incorporating into your life just depends on what your lifestyle looks like. So if you're someone that doesn't have a lot of time, then maybe going online, finding a 10, 15, 20-minute class is going to be, what you can do. If you're someone that wants to leave your house and go get a session with an instructor for an entire hour, then maybe you want to go find a local studio to support you and what you want there. So you can also do private training online too. Many, many people offer that as well, which is really convenient and nice. So putting it into your daily life could be very, very simple. And I often tell people who are first starting out and want to incorporate it into their life to do shorter, more frequent sessions. So oftentimes I'm asked, how often should I be doing Pilates? And again, typically I ask them, what their schedule looks like, what their day looks like, what their training is that they're already doing, if they're doing any. And I tell them, typically, I would recommend you do shorter periods of time more frequently so you can start to feel the benefits and the effects of Pilates sooner, because it's definitely a compounding type of training. So the more you do, the better you start feeling, and it continually layers one on top of the next. If you're someone that's already used to doing a lot of physical activity and taking that time to do it, then you could start doing that as well with Pilates. But I typically tell people that 2 to 3 sessions a week or classes is really the sweet spot of where you can start to feel those benefits of Pilates on a daily basis and reoccurring. Okay, now that we're nearing the end of our podcast, let's do a little recap. First, we answered the question of what is Pilates. So the definition of Pilates, the one that I created for you, is Pilates is a low-impact system of body conditioning. It strategically trains your body with specific exercises to promote postural balance, joint functionality, strengthening your whole body from inside to outside, flexibility, mobility, balance, and coordination. Now, we talked as well about the different pieces of equipment. So you can do mat Pilates, which doesn't require any equipment, but you could incorporate small props or pieces like a resistance band. There's circles. There are little stability balls or hand weights. There's also the larger pieces of equipment like a reformer, a Cadillac, a chair, barrels, etc. And there are 2 main styles of Pilates. There is the classical method, which is sort of like the purest form of Pilates because it uses Joseph Pilates Pilates exact structure from when he created it and uses the same exact equipment. Whereas if you choose to work with a contemporary instructor or take a contemporary approach to your training, you're going to work with an instructor that still holds the integrity of the classical exercises. But these instructors, when they work with you, they're going to be able to give you a wider scope of practice because these exercises are going to be created and tailored to adapt to your body more. They're going to be less rigid, and they're also going to incorporate the latest science and research that is being developed currently right now. So it's always evolving and progressing. Then we talked about the benefits. So there was a long list of them, but some of them were a mind-body connection that is stronger through Pilates. There's body awareness that you're going to gain in proprioception. There's the breathing aspects. You're going to get nice breath work. You're going to work the diaphragm. We're going to start to build strength through the inner unit of your body. It's going to promote relaxation and strength. It's going to bring postural support to your whole body, your skeleton. It's going to create a little more flexibility, mobility, balance, and coordination as well. So, I mean, who can benefit from all of that, right? Now, who is Pilates good for, and can I do Pilates? Pilates is quite literally good for everybody. Now, I'm just making a blanket statement here. Again, if I were to really specifically answer the question for you, the listener or the person or the client or the member, I would have to talk to you and ask more questions to get more information. But in my experience, Pilates is good for practically anybody, and anyone could benefit from it. And then the last question is, how can I be incorporating Pilates into my life, and how could I maybe find a more accessible way to do Pilates? So you can incorporate Pilates for 10 minutes a day, all the way up to an hour a day, whatever you want, whatever fits your needs. And you can make it simple. You could do this online. So Modern Body is the platform that I run. It's Pilates and movement based. And I really created this to create accessibility because you can go on there and find classes that range from 10 minutes long to an hour long. You could find a class that's a little bit higher intensity or lower intensity. We've got mobility classes, restorative classes. I even have strength training on there. So you can see how the Pilates and the strength training complement each other. You could go in person if you wanted to. You could take a group class in person. You could take an online group class. And if you wanted a free offering, you can find tons of stuff on YouTube as well. So Pilates has never been more accessible for individual bodies than it is right now, but also economically and from a financial perspective, which I think Joseph Pilates would actually be really happy with. And I truly think that the more people who are doing Pilates and moving your body, just like the better this world will be and the happier people will be. Thank you so much for joining me today and listening to this podcast. If you do want to find out more about Modern Body, then you can go on to modernbody, that's one word, .io to find out more about me or about Modern Body and the studio that's online that you can try, and you can do your free trial, see if you like it, try a variety of classes, or you could even find me on social media. I'm at Ali DeRoma on Instagram. So we'll put all that information in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode today and are enjoying this podcast, it would mean so much to me if you would share this with someone you think could also benefit, or maybe that person in your family that is wondering what Pilates is, or they're confusing it with other types of training. This would maybe help clarify that for them. So that would mean so much to me to help reach more people, to find more people. And until next time, take care of yourself, and I will be back next week with a new episode for you. Thanks. Bye.